What was your first love story? I don't know where to begin. It was in 2016 when I was moving on to middle school. I was 13 years old in 2016. I remember I was super nervous on the first day but recollected my nerves once I was with my friends. I remember showing up to my first class and sitting beside my friend. It was during that period that I fell head over heels in love with some random guy. Now this guy was an assistant teacher. He would always go from class to class helping students that needed assistance. I remember the first time I saw him was through the window. I was looking out the window that showed the corridors at the school. I remember he walked past it and suddenly my heart started to burst. It was as if my whole body froze. This feeling was new to me. It was the excitement and nervousness that made me vulnerable. From that day on, I would always get excited to see him in the corridor or whenever he was in my class. I couldn't take my eyes off him. It was some magnetic attraction that kept me staring at him. It was until year 9 where I started to approach him more. During years 7 and 8, I did not have the confidence to talk to him face to face. 2019 during year 9, I would sometimes visit the classroom he always had lunch in. There was this classroom where teacher aides could have lunch and students were allowed to join as well, only during lunchtime periods. I would have conversations with him but mostly I would be mean towards him and try to ignore him in the hallways. Haha, that was my way of flirting back when I was younger. He was a nice teacher aide, he treated everyone equally and cared. I remember that I was freezing cold in the classroom during lunch period and he let me use his jumper. Being 15 at the time, I was immediately flustered. I couldn't believe this was happening. I was going to explode. I could smell his scent on the jumper. I remember how it made me feel. After that day, I would ask to borrow his jacket from time to time. Surprisingly, he didn't object. I thought he must have truly liked me. The feeling of his jumper being on my body was one of the greatest feelings I have felt. I also recall his staring at me a few times. I don't want to sound like I'm full of myself. I remember my year level was having a meeting so I sat down and he was sitting directly opposite me and I told myself not to stare at him because I didn't want to be a creep. But after a while of me not staring at him I finally decided to look at him and once I did, his eyes were fixed on me. I remember staring at him for 3 seconds and looking away and looking back, his eyes still kept the same. Looking back at it now, it was probably him just staring off. Near the end of 2019 during this period, I went on camp with a few other students for this thing we were doing. Forgot what it's called. He also came with us to camp. We all went down to the water holes and swam. My friends ended up ditching me so I was left by myself. I decided to ask him since he didn't have anything to do, so he and I explored the water holes together. We didn't talk much, only small talk. Somehow it was nice to be in silence. He had offered to give me a piggyback because my feet were sore from all the rocks, but yet again 15-year-old me got too flustered and refused and said, "It's fine, we're almost finished exploring anyways." It was the last day of camp and everyone got inside the van. I sat at the front and he sat at the front of the passenger side, making it easier for us to talk. I saw him playing an app on his phone and asked what it was. I ended up downloading that game during our car ride back and I added him as a friend. To my luck, the game had a feature of chatting. It was too good to be true I thought. How lucky am I? Later that night I messaged him and he replied back. We were only talking for a while but later it soon became a little more. It didn't feel right knowing that I was still in year 9. I had asked him about us messaging on this platform and how it was appropriate or not, to which he replied with, "Yeah, maybe you're right, this is still considered a social play form." After saying that, we still continued our messaging. I had left middle school and I was on holidays till school started again. During this time we got comfortable messaging each other. Plus, I didn't have the guilt of knowing that I was still in middle school messaging a teacher aide since I had left that school. It was almost Christmas and I had asked him if he could add me on a social platform so we can message each other on that instead of the gaming app. At first he was reluctant but soon came around to that idea. From that moment on, we had started messaging each other every day. 2020 I have just entered high school, year 10. Him and I were still messaging each other every day. I mean every day. By then we had gotten comfortable with each other and talked about what stuff we enjoy and dislike. I asked if he had a girlfriend and he said he did. I felt sad of course and frustrated because I knew that I was still a kid. But a few months later I asked about his girlfriend and he told me they had broken up. In some sense I felt relieved but yet disappointed for myself for feeling that way. I asked why but he didn't want to say. This made me over time and draw a conclusion that I was the reason that they had broken up. Maybe me messaging him every day became an issue. This is where it finally gets more exciting. We would make plans to hang out with each other. Play basketball and tennis. We did go to the movies once. I asked him and he rejected the idea. He told me, it would be weird if I was hanging out with a teenage girl. I kept persisting but he refused, till a week later he said he would be willing to go with me. This made me confused. I asked him why the sudden change and he didn't give me a proper answer. Instead he said, I should be lucky that he has changed his mind. This made me upset but being 16 and in love I decided to go. There were a lot of things that we didn't want to explain to me. Nearing the end of 2020 throughout the year, we had many arguments and a lot of good moments together. It was filled with ups and downs, moments that made me cry. It was November when one day I got extremely irritated by him and told him I did not want to talk to him for a while. Maybe it was me acting like that due to me having thoughts about me waiting till I'm old enough to date him or just drop it all. He said okay to me not wanting to talk to him for a while. After that I got used to not messaging him, So I went a whole month without messaging till Christmas time. He had messaged me saying, "Merry Christmas," and I replied with, "Thanks." After that I haven't messaged him since. I ended up deleting his contact information. 2021 I haven't had an urge to talk to him, but sometimes he'll cross my mind and I'll reminisce about how much I genuinely did like this guy. I know it sounds silly for a young teenage girl to say, but I haven't felt like this my whole life. I am currently turning 17 years old and in year 11 now. I haven't found anyone I like just yet. I know this story is long, but to me this will always be a secret that I keep for the rest of my life. I had only told my 2 friends about this guy. My friends and I even went to the same middle school together. Oh. I forgot to mention he'll be turning 38 this year. He is 20 years older than me.